In the heart of ancient Yorubaland lay the vibrant city of Iloranmala, a place alive with the rhythm of life, and at its core, the sacred talking drum. This wasn't just an instrument. It was the city's voice, its heartbeat, echoing through the valleys and over the hills, carrying messages of joy, sorrow, and urgent news. For the people of Iloranmala, the drum was a lifeline, a sacred bond that connected every soul. In this city lived a young apprentice named Akinlabi. His hands, though still young, moved with a natural grace over the stretched height of his own small drum. He was the student of the most revered master drummer in the land, Babo Lutand. Every day, under the cool shade of a giant iroko tree, Babo Lutand would patiently guide Akinlabi's fingers, his voice a low, steady hum. He wasn't just teaching rhythms. He was teaching a language, a legacy passed down through generations. Listen, my son, Babo Lutand would say, his eyes filled with the wisdom of ages. Each beat has a meaning. The high tone sings of joy, the low tone weeps with sorrow. When they dance together, they tell stories. They can call a man by name from miles away. They can announce a new birth, or they can warn of danger. The talking drum speaks the truth of the community. It is a voice of the people for the people. Akinlabi listened, but his heart beat with the impatient drum of youth. He was gifted. No one could deny it. The complex patterns and tonal shifts came to him with an ease that amazed even Babo Lutand. He could replicate any message, mimic any call. But what he hadn't yet grasped was the weight of the words he was learning to speak. He saw the power, but not the responsibility that came with it. His ambition was a fire within him, eager to prove himself, to be heard across the kingdom, to be more than just an apprentice. One sweltering afternoon, as the sun hung high in the sky, Akinlabi was practicing alone. He was perched on a rocky outcrop that overlooked the sprawling farmlands stretching towards the neighboring villages. As his eyes scanned the horizon, a flicker of movement in the distant plains caught his attention. It was a large dust cloud, swirling and growing. His heart leaped. It looked like the dust kicked up by a raiding party, a sight he had only heard about in fearful stories. Panic, mixed with a surge of adrenaline and a foolish desire to be the hero, clouded his judgment. He didn't wait. He didn't seek confirmation. Babo Lutand's warnings about verification, about the sacred duty to speak only the truth, faded from his mind. This was his chance to prove his skill, to be the savior of Iloranmala. His hands flew across the drum's surface. The rhythm he sent out was urgent, sharp, and terrifying. It was the ancient alarm call, a frantic beat that spoke of invasion and fire. The message shot through the air, amplified by the valleys, reaching every corner of the kingdom. Danger! Raiders from the east! Arm yourselves! Flee to the city walls! The effect was immediate and catastrophic. In the villages, farmers dropped their hoes and fled their fields. Marketplaces descended into chaos as merchants abandoned their stalls, their wares trampled underfoot. Families were separated in the mad rush. Cries of fear replaced the usual hum of daily life. The carefully balanced peace of the kingdom shattered in an instant, all because of a message born from assumption and haste. By the time the king's scouts returned, breathless and confused, the damage was done. They reported no raiders, no enemy army. The dust cloud? It was just a massive herd of migrating antelope, a rare but natural event. The panic, the chaos, the terror, it was all for nothing. Akinlabi's unverified warning had turned a peaceful afternoon into a nightmare. Babo Lutand found Akinlabi still at his post, the drum silent beside him, his face pale with the horrifying realization of what he had done. The master's expression was not of anger, but of deep, profound sorrow. He led the boy back to the iroko tree, the scene of so many lessons, and sat him down. The air was heavy with the distant sounds of a community trying to piece itself back together. Look around you, Akinlabi, Babo Lutand said, his voice heavy. Hear the fear that still echoes in the air. That is the power you hold in your hands. This drum is not a toy for a boy's ambition. It is a sacred trust. Its voice is the voice of truth. When you speak with it, you speak with the authority of our ancestors, with the trust of every man, woman, and child who hears it. He placed a hand on Akinlabi's shoulder. Your message was fast. Your rhythm was perfect. But your heart was not. You spoke without wisdom. You shouted fire in a crowded hall because you thought you saw a flicker of light. Today, you learned the most important lesson of all, the weight of a word. A message once sent cannot be unheard. Its consequences, intended or not, become a part of our story. Your gift is immense, but without wisdom and responsibility, it is more dangerous than any raiding party. Akinlabi's head hung low, tears of shame tracing paths through the dust on his cheeks. The hero he had imagined himself to be was a fool who had terrorized his own people. The silence that followed was filled with the weight of that truth. He had failed his master, his king, and his community. The path to redemption seemed impossibly long. Months passed. Akinlabi did not touch the talking drum. He worked in the fields, helped rebuild what was broken, and listened. He listened to the stories of the families he had frightened, to the merchants who had lost their goods. He felt the lingering mistrust in the air. He served his community with his hands and his sweat, slowly earning back a measure of their respect, not as a drummer, but as a member of the village. Baba Ludand watched him, saying nothing, allowing the lesson to sink deep into his soul. Then, one evening, as the shadows grew long, a real threat emerged. A lone, exhausted scout stumbled into the city, gasping for breath. He brought terrifying news. A genuine raiding party, notorious for their brutality, had been spotted advancing swiftly from the north, using the cover of the dense forest to mask their approach. They were close, far too close for a traditional runner to warn the outer settlements in time. This time, the fear was real. The king and his council looked at each other with grave concern. Panic began to bubble once more, but Baba Ludand turned his steady gaze to Akinlabi. He simply nodded towards the great ceremonial drum in the center of the royal court. Akinlabi's heart pounded, but this time, it was not with ambition or fear. It was with a heavy sense of purpose. He stepped forward, his movements deliberate and sure. He took a deep breath, his mind clear and focused. He remembered the chaos, the fear, the lesson learned in shame. His hands touched the drum, and a new kind of rhythm filled the air. It was calm, precise, and authoritative. There was no panic in his beat. He didn't just shout a warning. He became the kingdom's strategist. His drumming was a masterclass in communication. First, he sent a specific message to the northern villages. Raiders approach from the forest. Evacuate west to the river. Do not panic. Move now. Then, a different rhythm, aimed at the king's warriors stationed throughout the city. Muster at the northern gate. The enemy is fast but disorganized. Prepare for an ambush at the forest's edge. He then sent a calming rhythm to the city itself, assuring the people that the warriors were moving to protect them and that the outer villages were being safely evacuated. His drumming coordinated the entire kingdom's defense with a clarity and precision that was breathtaking. The warriors moved as one, setting a trap for the raiders. The villagers evacuated in an orderly fashion, guided by the drum's steady voice. There was no widespread panic, only purposeful action. The raiders, expecting to find chaos and unprepared defenses, walked directly into a perfectly executed ambush and were swiftly defeated. Akinlabi's drumming had saved the kingdom, not through a panicked alarm, but through calm, accurate, and responsible communication. He had used his gift not just to warn, but to lead. In the aftermath, as cheers echoed through the city, Baba Ludand approached his student. He placed the master drummer's ceremonial sash over Akinlabi's shoulders. Today, he said, his voice filled with pride, you did not just play the drum. You became its soul. You have learned that the greatest power is not in the volume of your voice, but in the truth and wisdom of your message. From that day on, Akinlabi became the master drummer of Isle Orunmila. He carried the legacy of the talking drum with a humility and wisdom forged in the fire of his greatest mistake. He taught his own apprentices under the same Iriko tree, and his first lesson was always the same. He would tell them the story of the day a boy's ambition almost broke a kingdom, and how that boy learned that with great power, with the ability to speak to thousands, comes the sacred responsibility to speak the truth. For the voice of the drum, like any powerful form of communication, carries the weight of the world on its rhythm.